When you think about learning a new language, you usually picture this very clean, orderly process.
Right, like sitting in a classroom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You imagine these neatly organized lists of vocabulary, flashcards with verbs on one side and nouns on the other. It's a lot like learning the rules of chess.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Right. You memorize how the knight moves, you memorize how the bishop moves, and you just sort of assume everyone else sitting across the board is playing by the exact same rules.
Which is, that's a very comforting illusion, because the moment you step off that metaphorical chessboard, you realize the other person isn't playing chess at all.
Yeah.
They might be playing, rugby.
Exactly. Because language isn't just a list of dictionary definitions. It's really a social survival tool. And the rules of survival, they change completely depending on the room you're standing in.
Absolutely, they do.
So we have a fascinating set of sources today for this deep dive. We are exploring a collection of ESL training dialogues, specifically materials geared toward podcast English for beginners.
Right, which sounds pretty basic on the surface.
Totally.
Yeah.
But we aren't here to look at the grammar or the verb conjugation. Hidden inside these basic beginner lessons is this brilliant, almost terrifying sociological experiment.
It really is.
We're going to look at how English changes from the hyper-structured, heavily padded corporate workplace to the completely unpredictable, chaotic reality of everyday errands. Specifically, an episode in the material titled At the Market.
The contrast between those two settings provides this just perfect roadmap to human behavior. What these beginner dialogues inadvertently do is map out the unwritten social contracts of our lives.
Yeah.
You quickly see that fluency has very little to do with syntax and honestly everything to do with understanding power dynamics.
So true. So let's start where most professional journeys start, right? The job interview. This establishes our baseline for how beginners are taught to navigate polite society.
Okay, let's hear it.
So we have this dialogue with a candidate named Lucy, and she's interviewing with William, who is the head of HR. Lucy is outlining her background. She has a marketing degree, 2 years as an assistant.
Normal stuff.
Super normal stuff. But then William asks about her weaknesses, and her answer is just wild. She says, and I quote, "My biggest weakness is that I can't keep calm. Sometimes I lose control over my reactions."
Right, which, that sounds disastrous.
It sounds like a massive red flag.
Yeah.
You don't usually sit in a corporate office and openly admit you lose emotional control.
No, you definitely don't.
But William's reaction, it sets the tone for this entire corporate ecosystem. He doesn't show her the door. He actually says, "All right, we love passionate people."
Oh, wow.
I know. He completely refrowns her lack of emotional regulation into a positive business asset.
I'd actually argue that this isn't just a clumsy beginner dialogue, though. It's a hyper-accurate reflection of modern corporate culture.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, think about the current trend of authentic leadership. Candidates are actively trained to weaponize their flaws. Lucy isn't just making a mistake here. She's tapping into a corporate environment that demands a performative kind of vulnerability.
Performative vulnerability. That perfectly describes it. And that safety net, that hyper-supportive environment, it's everywhere in these early office dialogues.
You really?
Like we meet another guy, Anthony, and it's his very first day. He's terrified of making a mistake. And his coworker, John, immediately swoops in to manage that anxiety, saying, "We're all here to help, and no one wants you to know everything right away."
Setting the baseline of safety.
Exactly. And then Anthony asks where the meeting room is. John says it's right down the hall. But Anthony is so anxious, he actually has to ask, what does down the hall mean exactly?
Which is so telling. And instead of looking at him like he's crazy, John patiently explains that it means walking straight down the hallway until you see a big sign.
Which is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like starting a new job really is exactly like learning a new language. You're so hyper aware of the rules that you become terrified of taking a single wrong step.
Definitely.
But I have to ask you, is this hyper-supportive office environment actually realistic? Or is this just textbook English explicitly designed to coddle a language learner?
It's definitely an idealized, sort of utopian version of corporate life. But look at the mechanism of what's happening. Linguistically, John is doing something crucial for a beginner.
Okay.
In language acquisition, there's a concept called the affective filter. If a student is terrified of being mocked, that filter goes up and they just can't learn.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. So John's literal directions on how to walk down a hallway run parallel to his emotional directions.
Mm-hmm.
The implicit message is, you will not get lost here, physically or socially.
Right.
By removing the threat of harsh judgment, the learner is free to absorb the language.
We even see that with Alex, the new guy who just moved to the city from Vinton, Texas. On day one, his new team aggressively invites him to go hiking on the weekend.
A classic team-building move.
Right. And Alex immediately sets a boundary. He just says, I'd love to, just not too early, okay.
Huh.
And the team just unconditionally accepts it.
Which again establishes that the modern office, at least in this textbook form, is a place where boundaries are instantly respected.
But that need for safety, I think it totally explains the jargon. Because once you're physically safe in the building and you know how to walk down the hall, you have to survive the actual meetings.
And that's a whole different skill set.
Exactly. And to do that, you need linguistic armor. The dialogue shifts from basic greetings to decoding some pretty heavy corporate speak.
Like what?
Well, Vivian has to ask her coworker, Tony, what client feedback analysis means. And Tony just says it means listening to customers.
Just listening to customers.
Yeah. Then she asks about benchmarking. And he explains it's literally just comparing your results to other companies. Look at what we force beginners to learn. We make them memorize client feedback analysis when we really just mean listening.
We really do.
We're basically teaching them to deliberately obscure meaning to sound professional.
That's the perfect way to phrase it. Jargon is essentially linguistic bubble wrap.
Ooh, I like that. Linguistic bubble wrap.
Yeah, it's not designed to make communication clearer. It's designed to make it safer. I mean, if you say listening to customers, it sounds small, maybe even a little subjective.
Right.
But if you say client feedback analysis, you've wrapped the activity in this layer of empirical authority. It protects the speaker.
And it creates an exclusive club. If you don't know the acronyms, you aren't in the club. Carlos, another beginner in the office, is desperately trying to figure out what AASA means. He learns it as soon as possible.
Class.
Right. But then he asks about CC in emails. And his coworker has to explain, CC stands for carbon copy. It's when you send an email to more than one person, but you don't have to reply.
Right.
Now, I have to push back on this being in a modern beginner's guide. Carbon copy. It's a physical relic from the era of typewriters. How on earth has this survived in modern digital English?
Well, because the physical carbon paper might be gone, but the social function of the CC is more powerful than ever.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Jargon outlives its physical origins when it becomes a crucial cultural shorthand. In the corporate world, the CC button is a weapon of hierarchy and visibility.
Okay, yes.
It's how you say, I want the boss to know that I told you to do this without actually having to say it. It's performative visibility.
And that performative visibility is exactly why mistakes in the office feel so catastrophic. Because everyone is watching.
Exactly.
Just look at Carlos. Moments after learning what a CC is, he accidentally sends a draft file to a client instead of the final version. He completely spirals.
Poor Carlos.
Right. He's hyperventilating, saying, I'm so embarrassed and I hate the idea of giving a bad impression. And his coworker immediately breaks out the emergency linguistic bubble wrap to talk him off the ledge.
What do they say?
They tell him it's not the end of the world and to just apologize, saying clients deal with mix-ups all the time.
Notice the specific vocabulary of de-escalation there. Not the end of the world, just a mix-up.
Yeah, totally softening the blow.
Because in a high-visibility environment, a mistake feels lethal. The workplace requires this specialized dialect where conflict and errors are handled with extreme, constructive diplomacy to protect the company's momentum. The goal is to minimize the panic so Carlos can just get back to work.
It's all about protocol and risk mitigation. Take Jake, for example. He's setting up a government project meeting for a VIP, Mr. Spencer. The language used here isn't just book a room. It's a highly choreographed logistical ballet.
It's intense.
He has to book a specific room for 10 people through an admin named Sasha, print out physical handouts, arrange light snacks for a 15-minute break, and crucially, check the participants' food allergies.
That detail about food allergies is the key to understanding advanced business English.
Why is that?
At this level, communication isn't just about output, it's about anticipating needs. Checking for allergies is literally a physical manifestation of corporate risk management.
But the HR bubble wrap doesn't just protect you from food allergies, it protects egos during conflict. Jake gets called into a manager's office because he isn't collaborating well.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and Jake is defensive. He literally says, I thought I was doing my part, I sent out my part, I thought I could just work alone. Now, in a normal setting, a boss might just say, you're being a bad teammate, fix it.
Right.
But what's the diplomacy here? The manager says, I've noticed you haven't been collaborating well. We need your input on the whole project.
Right. I've noticed you haven't been. That is textbook passive constructive feedback.
Yeah.
By framing it as an observation rather than an accusation, the manager avoids triggering Jake's defensive reflexes. It's an invitation to correct the behavior, not an outright attack on his character.
That diplomacy leaks into everything, even office gossip.
Yeah.
We hear about Sarah getting a promotion to team leader because she goes the extra mile and stays late.
Good for Sarah.
Meanwhile, there is a secret office romance happening. Two coworkers are trying to coordinate lunch plans, but they decide it's too risky because another coworker, Karen, has been watching like a hawk.
There's always a Karen.
Always.
Okay.
And literally, right as they say that, Karen interrupts them and gets nosy about why they were spending so much time together.
Yeah.
And they immediately pivot and awkwardly pretend they were deeply concerned about project deadlines.
It perfectly illustrates the power of subtext. I mean, the literal words leaving their mouths are about project deliverables, but the actual meaning, the pragmatic function of the language, is defensive maneuvering.
Yes, exactly.
They're throwing up a verbal smokescreen. In the corporate office, you are constantly managing appearances.
But if the office requires us to constantly suppress our impulses and throw up smokescreens to survive, what happens when we leave the building? What happens when the corporate HR safety net completely disappears?
Well, things get messy.
Very messy. The answer is in the grocery aisle. We move to the second half of these sources titled At the Market. And my goodness, the polite social contract instantly vaporizes. If the office dialogues are a choreographed ballet, the supermarket dialogues are a professional wrestling match.
It is a stunning shift. Consumer English strips away almost all the pleasantries we just analyzed in business English.
Completely.
The moment money is changing hands in a retail environment, the power dynamic becomes incredibly asymmetrical, and the language reflects that raw transaction.
Case in point.
Yeah.
We meet this staggeringly demanding customer at the supermarket. She walks up to a worker and asks where the shopping carts are. The worker politely says they are outside by the entrance.
Pretty standard.
Standard, right. But she flat out refuses to go get one because it's too hot outside. She commands the worker to fetch it. Then, when he brings it, she complains the cart is too small. Then she complains it has wobbling wheels. Then she demands to be personally escorted to the fresh milk.
Think about the linguistic shift here. In the office, if someone needs something, they use softening language. Could you possibly help me? Or I was wondering if you had a...
All that bubble wrap.
Exactly. This customer completely abandons that. She relies entirely on direct imperatives. Get me a cart. Show me the milk.
It's jarring. We just spent 20 minutes watching Carlos profusely apologize and hyperventilate over a minor email typo, terrified of offending someone.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, this customer feels absolute zero shame demanding VIP concierge treatment in the dairy aisle.
It's a completely different world.
But the absolute best part of this source material is the worker's escape tactic. The worker realizes he is trapped with an impossible person, so he doesn't help her find the milk. Instead, he just randomly points and says, "Ma'am, what is that thing coming behind you?"
That is amazing. It's a linguistic smoke bomb.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The customer turns around confused, saying, "What thing? There is nothing coming behind me." And when she turns back around, the worker has just vanished into the aisles,
That's hilarious.
leaving her to grumble that the staff is completely unhelpful. It's so funny, but it's a profound subversion of customer service rules.
It really is. I mean, the supermarket scenario forces the beginner learner to recognize that language isn't always about cooperation. Sometimes it's about evasion.
Right.
The worker uses language not to serve the customer, but to break an abusive power dynamic and escape.
And the customer's rampage doesn't even stop there. The HR net is gone, so she just keeps going. Later, she's ranting to the cashier. She complains the store is disorganized, the staff is unfriendly, and that it took forever to find the fresh milk.
Oh, she's still on the milk?
Still on the milk. And then she starts bringing up historical grievances. She complains about a previous error with the price of bread from a past visit and a missing discount offer. She even blames the wobbling wheels on other parents letting their kids ride in the shopping carts.
She is weaponizing the vocabulary of consumer rights. Words like discount, price error, and unacceptable are being used offensively.
Yes.
She isn't trying to communicate. She's really just trying to establish dominance over the cashier to compensate for her frustrating experience.
But the aggression isn't just top-down from customer to staff. The toxic environment of the market bleeds into interactions between the customers themselves, and it gets deeply absurd.
Okay, what happens?
We meet a guy named Jason. He runs into a friend in the store who asks what he's doing at the supermarket. Jason responds with pure, deadpan sarcasm. He says, I came here to buy a house.
Which, for a beginner learning English, is an incredibly advanced linguistic maneuver to decode.
Why is that so advanced? I mean, it's just a joke.
Because it relies on breaking what linguists call Grice's maxims. Specifically, the maxim of quality, which says you should tell the truth.
Oh, okay.
Sarcasm requires the speaker and the listener to share a reality and then mutually agree to ignore it. Jason assumes his friend knows he can't buy a house in a grocery store, so the absurdity of the statement is the actual message. It requires a high level of situational awareness that flashcards just can't teach.
Situational awareness that Jason is about to severely lack.
Oh, no.
His friend laughs and asks what he's actually buying, since Jason admitted he skipped the gym today. Jason lists a very bachelor grocery list. Milk, cereal, eggs, and then frozen pizza and ice cream for dessert.
Naturally.
But his casual trip to the frozen food aisle takes a very dark turn. He accidentally bumps into another shopper or walks on the wrong side of the aisle, and you'd expect the other shopper to just say, excuse me, or maybe give him a dirty look.
Sure, that's normal.
But no, the shopper instantly escalates. He yells at Jason, hey, you need to look where you're going. You're coming on the wrong side. Jason tries to defend himself, saying there's no such thing as a wrong side in a grocery aisle.
Which is logically true, but practically a massive mistake.
A huge mistake, because the other shopper literally turns into an action movie villain. He looks at Jason and says, be careful with my words. Be careful with me. I'm dangerous.
You're kidding.
I wish I was. And then he hits Jace with, bring it on. You don't stand a chance. Over walking on the wrong side of the grocery aisle.
That is unhinged.
Right. Have you ever had a moment in a foreign country where you realized you accidentally stepped into a high-stakes confrontation? It's terrifying. Bring it on. Is Liam Neeson dialogue happening next to the frozen pizzas?
It perfectly illustrates how incredibly fragile the social fabric is in public spaces. In the office, conflict is padded with layers of client feedback and I've noticed statements.
Yeah.
In the supermarket, the padding is gone and territorial instincts completely take over.
But it's not all action movie threats in the produce section. Amidst the chaos, we get a fascinating contrast in how vocabulary is practically applied. We have a father and his daughter Anna checking produce. The father is looking at production and expiry dates, explaining to Anna that they can't afford the organic vegetables because they are too pricey.
And then he gives her an incredibly precise, literal vocabulary lesson right there in the aisle.
He does.
He tells Anna they need to be selective so they don't buy rotten fruits. And when she asks what rotten means, he doesn't use a metaphor. He defines it explicitly. Old, soft, changed color, grown mold, spoiled.
It's literally a dictionary definition happening in real time.
Because the stakes require literal meaning. If she misunderstands rotten, they buy bad food. This highlights the duality of language learning.
How so?
For a beginner, you absolutely have to absorb the literal definitions of the father, understanding exactly what spoiled means. But simultaneously, you haven't developed the situational awareness to understand Jason's sarcasm about buying a house and to recognize the unhinged aggression of the dangerous shopper.
Yeah, that makes sense.
True comprehension requires toggling between literal dictionary definitions and complex emotional subtext.
It's all about knowing which rulebook is currently in play. And sometimes knowing the exact rules of the Wild West can actually work in your favor.
Oh, definitely.
The final interaction we see at the market is a surprisingly smooth transaction. A customer comes to the cashier with a damaged, leaking bottle of coconut water. The customer doesn't yell or throw a fit. They just calmly present the problem.
Refreshing.
The cashier immediately offers a full refund or a replacement. The customer takes the refund and then casually remembers the granular details of the transaction. They say, I believe I also need the refund for the plastic bag. And they get it.
It is a masterclass in executing consumer rights without the hostility of the earlier cart-complaining customer. The language is polite, firm, and highly effective. It proves that you can navigate the chaos of the Wild West successfully, provided, the precise phrases, and maintain a completely calm register. You don't have to become aggressive to get your plastic bag refunded. You just have to be precise.
So let's pull all of this together. We have been on quite a journey today through these beginner dialogues. We started in the delicate, highly padded diplomacy of the modern office. We learned why we use linguistic bubble wrap like benchmarking.
Essential survival tools.
We saw how ceasing a colleague is really about establishing visibility. And we learned how to apologize for sending a draft email like it's a fragile diplomatic crisis that requires immediate de-escalation.
We observed a highly regulated environment where language is engineered to maintain harmony, protect egos, and mitigate corporate risk.
And then we took a hard left into the cutthroat, sarcastic, cart-wobbling reality of the local supermarket, an environment where people will literally claim they are dangerous over grocery cart etiquette.
Still can't get over that.
And where customer service workers have to invent imaginary monsters standing behind people just to escape an abusive conversation.
The contrast is jarring, but it is deeply reflective of how we actually live. I mean, fluency isn't a single destination you reach by memorizing flashcards. It is the agility required to travel seamlessly between these wildly different worlds.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to ponder today. We often think fluency means having a massive vocabulary. But if true fluency is actually emotional agility, the ability to know exactly when to use a hyper-supportive corporate apology and when to spot the deadpan sarcasm of a guy pretending to buy a house in the frozen food aisle, what happens to the future of translation?
Oh, that's a great question.
Think about all the AI translation tools and earpieces hitting the market right now. They were incredible at dictionary definitions. But can a piece of software read the room?
Probably not.
When Jason says, "I came here to buy a house," does the AI translate the sarcasm, or does it tell the listener he's literally looking for a mortgage next to the ice cream?
Right, it might just fail completely there.
Language might be the one technology that requires a human flaw to perfectly understand. So challenge yourself. In the very next conversation you have today, don't just listen to the words, look for the bubble wrap.
Read the room.
Notice the unwritten rules dictating what is really being said. Are you in a choreographed corporate ballet, or are you in a professional wrestling match? We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.